Hello, my friends, and welcome to another night of story time with Indiana Holmes. And tonight we continue with Treasure Island, Chapter 28 In the Enemy's Camp. The red glare of the torch lighting up the interior of the blockhouse showed me the worst of my apprehensions realized. The pirates were in possession of the house and stores. There was the cask of cognac. There were pork and bread, as before, and what tenfold increased my horror, not a sign of any prisoner. I could only judge that all had perished, and my heart smote me sorely that I had not been there to perish with them. There were 6 of the buccaneers, all told. Not another man was left alive. 5 of them were on their feet, flushed and swollen, suddenly called out of the first sleep of drunkenness. The 6th had only risen upon his elbow. He was deadly pale, and the blood-stained bandage round his head told that he had recently been wounded, and still more recently dressed. I remembered the man who had been shot and had run back among the woods in the great attack, and doubted not that this was he. The parrot sat preening her plumage on Long John's shoulder. He himself, I thought, looked somewhat paler and more stern than I was used to. He still wore the fine broadcloth suit in which he had fulfilled his mission, but it was bitterly the worse for wear, daubed with clay and torn with the sharp briars of the wood. "So," said he, "here's Jim Hawkins. Shiver me timbers. Drop in like, well, come in. I take that friendly." And thereupon he sat down across the brandy cask and began to fill a pipe. "Give me a loan of a link, Dick," said he, and then, when he had a good light, "That'll do, lad," he added. "Stick the glim in the wood heap, and you gentlemen, bring yourselves to. You needn't stand up for Mr. Hawkins. He'll excuse you. You may lay to that. And so, Jim," stopping the tobacco, "here you were, and quite a pleasant surprise for poor old John. I see you were smart when you first set eyes on you. But this here gets away from me clean, it do." To all this, as may be well supposed, I made no answer. They had set me with my back against the wall, and I stood there, looking Silver in the face, pluckily enough, I hope, to all outward appearance, but with black despair in my heart. Silver took a whiff or two off of his pipe with a great composure, and then ran on again. "Now you see, Jim, so be as you are here," says he. "I'll give you a piece of my mind. I've always liked you, I have, for a lad of spirit, and the picter of my own self when I was a young and handsome one. I always wanted you to jine and take your share and die a gentleman, and now, my cock, you've got to. Captain Smollett's a fine seaman, as I'll own up to any day, but stiff on discipline. Duty is duty," says he, "and right he is. Just you keep clear of the captain. The doctor himself is gone dead again, you ungrateful scamp," was what he said, and the short and the long of the whole story is about here. You can't go back to your own lot, for they won't have you, and without you start a third ship's company all by yourself, which might be lonely, you'll have to jine with Captain Silver. So far as good, my friends, then we're still alive, and though I partly believed the truth of Silver's statement, the cabin party were incensed at me for my desertion. I was more relieved than distressed by what I heard. "I don't say nothing as to you and being in your hands," continued Silver, "though there you are, and you may lay it to it. I'm all for argument. I never seen good come to threatening. If you like the service, well, you jine. And if you don't, Jim, why, you're free to answer no free and welcome shipmate. And if fair can be said by mortal seamen, shiver my sides." "Am I to answer then?" I asked with a very tumultuous and tremulous voice. Through all this sneering talk, I was made to feel the threat of death that overhung me, and my cheeks burned and my heart beat painfully in my breast. Lad, said Silver, no one's oppressing of you. Take your bearings. None of us won't hurry you, mate. Time goes so pleasant in your company, you see. Well, says I, growing a bit bolder, if I am to choose, I declare I have right to know what's what and why you're here and where's my friends are. What's what? Repeated one of the buccaneers in the deep growl, as he'd be a lucky one as he knowed that. You'll perhaps batten down your hatches till you're spoke to, my friend, cried Silver truculently to the speaker. And then, in his first gracious tones, he replied to me. Yesterday morning, Mr. Hawkins, said he, in the dog watch, down came Dr. Livesey with a flag of truce, says he. Captain Silver, you're sold out. Ship's gone. Well, maybe we'd been talking a glass. And a song to help it round. I won't say no. Leastwise, none of us had looked out. We looked out, and by thunder, the old ship was gone. I never seen a pack of fools look fishier. And you may lay to that. If I tells you that looked the fishiest. Well, says the doctor, let's bargain. We bargained, him and I, and here we are. Stores, brandy, blockhouse, the firewood, as was thoughtful enough to cut, and in a manner of speaking, the whole blessed boat, from cross trees to Kelson. As for them, they've tramped. I don't know wheres they are. Here drew again quietly at his pipe. And lest you should take into that head of yours, he went on, that you was included in the treaty, here's the last word that was said. How many are you, says I, to leave? 4, says he, 4, and one of us is wounded. As for that boy, I don't know where he is, confound him, says he, nor don't much care. We're about sick of him. These was his words. Is that all? I asked. Well, it's all that you're to hear, my son, returned Silver. And now I am to choose, and now you are to choose, and you may lay to that, said Silver. Well, said I am not such a fool, but I know pretty well what I have to look for. Let the worst come to the worst, it's little care I've seen too many die since I fell in with you, but there's a thing or two I have to tell you, I said, and by this time I was quite excited. And the first is this. Here you are in a bad way, ship lost, treasure lost, men lost, your whole business gone to wreck. And if you want to know who did it, it was I. I was in the apple barrel the night we sighted land, and I heard you, John, and you, Dick Johnson, and Hans, who is now at the bottom of the sea, and I told every word you said before the hour was out. And as for the schooner, it was I who cut her cable, and it was I that killed the men you had aboard of her, and it was I who brought her here, where you'll never see her more, not one of you. The laugh's on my side. I've had the top of this business from the first. I no more fear you than I fear a fly. Kill me if you please, or spare me. But one thing I'll say, and no more. If you spare me, bygones are bygones. And when you fellows are in court for piracy, I'll save you all I can. It is for you to choose. Kill another, or do yourselves no good, or spare me and keep a witness to save you from the gallows. I stopped, for, I tell you, I was out of breath, and to my wonder not a man of them moved, but all sat staring at me like many sheep. And while they were still staring, I broke out again. And now, Mr. Silver, I said, I believe you're the best man here, and if things go to the worst, I'll take it kind of you to let the doctor know the way I took it. I'll bear it in mind, said Silver, with an accent so curious that I could not, for the life of me, decide whether he were laughing at my request or had been favorably affected by my courage. I'll put one to that, cried the old mahogany-faced seaman, Morgan by name, whom I had seen in Long John's public house upon the quays of Bristol. It was him that knowed Black Dog. Well, and see here, added the sea cook, I'll put it another way again to that, by thunder. For it was this same boy that faked the chart from Billy Bones, first and last. We've split upon Jim Hawkins. Then here goes, said Morgan with an oath, and he sprang up, drawing his knife as if he had been 20. "Avast there!" cried Silver. "Who are you?" "Tom Morgan. Maybe you thought you was captain here, perhaps. By the powers, but I'll teach you better. Cross me, and you'll go where many good man's gone before you, first and last, these 30 years back. Some to the yardarm shiver my timbers, and some by the board, and all feed to the fishes. There's never a man looked me between the eyes and seen a good day's tour afterwards, Tom Morgan. You may lay it to that." Morgan paused, but a hoarse murmur rose from the others. "Tom's right," said one. "I stood hazing long enough from me." "And from one," added another. "I'll be hanged if I'll be hazed by you, John Silver." "Did any of you gentlemen want to have it out with me?" roared Silver, bending far forward from his position on the keg, with his pipe still glowing in his right hand. "Put a name on what you're at. You ain't dumb, I reckon. Him that wants shall get it. Have I lived this many years, and a son of a rum-punchin' cock, his hat athwart my harse, at the latter end of it. You know the way. You're all gentlemen of fortune, by your account. Well, I'm ready. Take a cutlass him that dares, and I'll see the color of his inside, crutch and all, before that pipe's empty." Not a man stirred, not a man answered. "That's your sort, is it?" he added, returning his pipe to his mouth. "Well, you're a gay lot to look at anyway. Not much worth to fight, you ain't. Perhaps you can understand King George's English. I'm captain here by 'lection. I'm captain here because I'm the best man by a long sea mile. You won't fight as gentlemen of fortune should. Then by thunder you'll obey, and you may lay to it. I like that boy. Now, I never seen a better boy than that. He's more a man than any pair of you rats of you that's here in this house. And what I say is this: let me see him that lay a hand on him. That's what I say, and you may lay to it." There was a long pause after this. I stood straight up against the wall, my heart still going like a sledgehammer, but a ray of hope now shining in my bosom. Silver leaned back against the wall, his arms crossed, his pipe in the corner of his mouth, as calm as though he had been in church. Yet his eye kept wandering furtively, and he kept the tail of it on his unruly followers. They, on their part, gradually grew together towards the far end of the blockhouse, and the low hiss of their whispering sounded in my ear continuously, like a stream. One after another, they would look up, and the red light of the torch would fall for a second on their nervous faces. But it was not towards me, it was towards Silver they turned their eyes. "You seem to have a lot to say," remarked Silver, spitting far into the air. "Pipe up and let me hear it, or lay to." "Ax your pardon, sir," returned one of the men. "You're pretty free with some of them rules. Maybe you kindly keep an eye on the rest. The crew's dissatisfied. This crew don't vally bullying a marlin spike. This crew has its rights like other crews. I'll make so free as that. And by your own rules, I take it we can talk together. I ax your pardon, sir, acknowledging you for to be captaining at this present. But I claim my right, and steps outside for a council." And with an elaborate sea salute, this fellow, a long, ill-looking, yellow-eyed man of 35, stepped coolly towards the door and disappeared out of the house. One after another, the rest followed his example, each making a salute as he passed, each adding some apology. "According to rules," said one. "Forecastle council," said Morgan. And so, with one remark or another, all marched out and left Silver and me alone with a torch. The sea cook instantly removed his pipe. "Now, look you here, Jim Hawkins," he said, in a steady whisper that was no more than audible. "You're within half a plank of death, and what's a long sight worse, of torture. They're going to throw me off, but you mark, I stand by you through thick and thin. I didn't mean to, no, not till you spoke up. I was about desperate to lose that much blunt, and be hanged into the bargain. But I see you was the right sort. I says to myself, you stand by Hawkins, John, and Hawkins, I'll stand by you. You're his last card. And by the living thunder, John, he's yours. Back to back, says I. You save your witness, and he'll save your neck. I began dimly to understand. You mean all's lost? I asked. Aye, by gum, I do, he answered. Ship's gone, neck's gone. That's the size of it. Once I looked into the bay, Jim Hawkins, and seen no schooner, well, I'm tough, but I gave out. As for that lot, their counsel, mark me, they're outright fools and cowards. I'll save your life, if so be as I can, from them. But see here, Jim, tit for tat, you save Long John from swinging. I was bewildered. It seemed a thing so hopeless he was asking. He, the old buccaneer, the ringleader throughout. What can I do? That I'll do, I said. It's a bargain, cried John Long. You speak up, plucky, and by thunder, I've a chance. He hobbled to the torch, where it stood propped among the firewood, and took a fresh light to his pipe. Understand me, Jim, he said, returning. I've a head on my shoulders. I have. I'm a squire's side now. I know you've got that ship safe somewheres. How you done it, I don't know, but safe it is. I guess Hans and O'Brien's turned soft. I never much believed in neither of them. Now you mark me. I ask no questions, nor I won't let others. I know when a game's up, I do, and I know a lad that's staunch. You that's young. You and me might have done a power of good together. He drew some cognac from the cask into a tin canskin. Will you taste, messmate? He asked. And when I had refused, well, I'll take a drain myself, Jim, said he. I need a chocker, for there's some trouble on hand. And talking o' trouble, why did that doctor give me the tart, Jim? My face expressed a wonder so unaffected that he saw the needlessness of further questions. Ah, well, he did, though, said he. And there's something under that, no doubt. Something surely under that, Jim, bad or good. And he took another swallow of the brandy, shaking his great fair head like a man who looks forward to the worst. Chapter 29. The Black Spot Again. The council of buccaneers had lasted some time, when one of them re-entered the house, and with a repetition of the same salute, which had, in my eyes, an ironical air, begged for a moment's loan of the torch, Silver briefly agreed, and this emissary retired again, leaving us together in the dark. There's a breeze coming, Jim, said Silver, who had by this time adopted quite a friendly, familiar tone. I turned to the loophole nearest me and looked out. The embers of the fire had so far burned themselves out and now glowed so low and duskily that I understood why these conspirators desired a torch. About halfway down the slope to the stockade, they were collected in a group. One held the light, another was on his knees in their midst, and I saw the blade of an open knife shine in his hand, with varying colors in the moon and the torchlight. The rest were all somewhat stooping, as though watching the maneuvers of this last. I could just make out what he had, a book as well as a knife, in his hand, and was still wondering how anything so incongruous could come in their possession, when the kneeling figure rose once more to his feet, and the whole party began to move together towards the house. Here they come, said I, and I returned to my former position, for it seemed beneath my dignity that they should find me watching them. Well, let 'em in, lad, let 'em come, said Silver cheerily. I've still a shot in my locker. The door opened, and the 5 men standing huddled together just inside pushed one of their number forward. In any other circumstance, it would have been comical to see his slow advance, hesitating as he set down each foot, but holding closed right hand in front of him. Step up, lad, cried Silver. I won't eat you. Hand it over, lubber. I know the rules, I do. I won't hurt decapitation or deception. Thus encouraged, the buccaneer stepped forth more briskly, and having passed something to Silver from hand to hand, slipped yet more smartly back again to his companions. The sea cook looked at what had been given to him. The black spot. I thought so, he observed. Where might you have got the papers? Why, Hilo. Look here, now. This ain't lucky. They've gone and cut out of the Bible. What fools cut a Bible? Ah, there, said Morgan. There, what did I say? No good come of that, I said. Well, you've about fixed it now among you, Silver. Continued. You'll all swing now, I reckon. What soft-headed lubber had a Bible? It was Dick, said one. Dick, was it? Well, Dick can get to the prayers, said Silver. He's seen his slice of luck, has Dick, and you may lay to that. But here the long man with the yellow eyes struck in. Belay that talk, John Silver, he said. This crew has tipped you the black spot in full council. As in duty bound, just you turn it over, as in duty bound, and see what's wrote there. Then you can talk. Thank'ee, George, replied the sea cook. You always was brisk for business, and has the rules by heart, George, as I'm pleased to see. Well, what is it anyway? Ah, deposed, that is it? Very pretty wrote, to be sure, like print, I swear. Your hand o' right, George. Why, you was getting quite a leadin' man in this here crew. You'll be a captain next, I shouldn't wonder. Just oblige me with that torch again, will you? This pipe don't draw. Come on now, said George. You don't fool this crew no more. You're a funny man by your account, but you're over now, and you'll maybe step down off that barrel and help vote. I thought you said you knowed the rules, returned Silver contemptuously. Leastways, if you don't, I do. And I wait here, and I'm still your captain, mind you, till you's outs with your grievances, and I reply in the meantime. Your black spot ain't worth a biscuit. After that, we'll see. Oh, replied George, you don't be under no kind of apprehension? We're all square, we are. First, you've made a hash of this cruise. You'll be a bold man to say no to that. Second, you let the enemy out this here trap for nothing. Why did they want out? I don't know, but it's pretty plain they wanted it. Third, you wouldn't let us go at them upon the march. Oh, we see through you, John Silver. You want to play booty. That's what's wrong with you. And then, fourth, there's this boy. Is that all? Asked Silver quietly. Enough too, retorted George. We'll all swing, and sun dry for your bungling. Well now, look here. I'll answer these 4 points. One after another, I'll answer 'em. I made a hash of this cruise, did I? Well now, you all know what I wanted, and you all know if that had been done, and we'd been aboard the Hispaniola this night as ever was, every man of us alive, and fit, and full of good plum duff, and the treasure in the hold of her, by thunder. Well, who crossed me? Who forced my hand, as was the lawful captain? Who tipped me back the black spot the day we landed and began this dance? Ah, it's a fine dance. I'm with you there, and looks mighty like a hornpipe in a rope's end at Execution Dock by London town. It does. But who done it? Why, it was Anderson and Hans and you, George Mary, and you're the last above board of that meddling crew, and you have the Davy Jones insolence to up and stand for the captain over me? You that sank the lot of us? By the powers, but this tops the stiffest yarn to nothing. Silver paused, and I could see by the faces of George and his late comrades that these words had not been said in vain. That's for number 1, cried the accused, wiping the sweat from his brow, for he had been talking with a vengeance that shook the house. Why, I give you my word, I am sick to speak to you. You've neither sense nor memory, and leave it to fancy where your mother's was that let you come to sea. See, gentlemen, O fortune, I reckon tailors is your trade." "Go on, John," said Morgan. "Speak up to the others." "Ah, the others," returned John. "They're a nice lot, ain't they? You say this crew's got bungled. Ah, by gum, if you could understand how bad it's bungled, you would see. We're that near the giblet that my neck's stiff with thinking on it. You've seen 'em, maybe, hanged in chains, birds about 'em, seamen pinting 'em out as they go down with the tide. 'Who's that?' says one. 'That? Why, that's John Silver. I knowed him well,' says another. 'And you can hear the chains a jangle as you go about and reach for the other buoy. Now, that's about where we are, every mother's son of us, thanks to him, and Hans and Anderson, and the other ruination fools of you. And if you want to know about number 4, and that boy, why, shiver me timbers, isn't he a hostage? Are we going to waste a hostage? No, not us. He might be our last chance, and I shouldn't wonder. Kill that boy? Not me, mates. And number 3, well, there's a deal to say to number 3. Maybe you don't count it nothing to have a real college doctor to see you every day, you John, with your head broke, or you, George Mary, that had to argue shakes upon not 6 hours ago, and has your eyes in color of a lemon peel to the same moment on the clock. And maybe perhaps you didn't know there was a consort coming either, but there is, and not so long till then, and we'll see who will be glad to have a hostage when it comes to that. And as for number 2, and why I made a bargain, well, you came crawling on your knees to me to make it. On your knees you came. You was that downhearted, and you'd have starved too if I hadn't. But that's a trifle. You look there, that's why. And he cast down upon the floor a paper that was instantly recognized, none of the others than the chart of the yellow paper with the 3 red crosses. That I had found on the oilcloth at the bottom of the captain's chest. Why, the doctor had given it to him, was more than I could fancy. But if it were inexplicable to me, the appearance of the chart was incredible to the surviving mutineers. They leaped upon it like cats upon a mouse. It went from hand to hand, one tearing it from another, and by the oaths and the cries and the childish laughter with which they accompanied their examination, you would have thought not only they were fingering the very gold, but were at sea with it, besides in safety. "Yes," said one, "that's Flint's sure enough, J. F. and a score below, with a clove hitch to it. So he's done ever." "Mighty pretty," said George, "but how are we going to get away with it? Us with no ship." Silver suddenly sprang up, and supporting himself with a hand against the wall. "Now I give you warning, George," he cried. "One more word of your sauce, and I'll call you down and fight you. How? Why? How do I know? You had ought to tell me that you and the rest that lost me, my schooner, with your interference, burn you. But not you. You hain't got the invention of a cockroach. But civil can you speak, and shall, George Mary, you may lay to that." "That's fair now," said the old man Morgan. "Fair, I reckon so," said the sea cook. "You lost the ship, I found the treasure. Who's the better man at that? And now I resign, by thunder. Elect whom you please to be your captain now. I'm done with it." "Silver," they cried. "Barbecue forever, barbecue for captain." "So that's the tune, is it?" cried the cook. "George, I reckon you'll have to wait another turn, friend. And lucky for you as I'm not a vengeful man. But that was never my way. And now, shipmates, the black spot. 'Tain't much good now, is it? Dick's crossed his luck and spoiled his Bible, and that's about all." "It'll do to kiss the book on still, won't it?" growled Dick, who was evidently uneasy at the curse he had brought upon himself. A Bible with a bit cut out, returned Silver derisively. Not it. It don't bind no more. No more a ballad book. Don't it, though? Cried Dick, with a sort of joy. Well, I reckon that it's worth having to. Here, Jim. Here's a curiosity for you, said Silver, and he tossed me the paper. It was around the size of a crown piece. One side was blank, for it had the last leaf, and the other contained a verse or two of Revelation. These words, among the rest, were struck sharply home on my mind. Without are dogs and murderers, and printed side on the blackened wood ash, which already began to come off and soil my fingers. On the blank side had been written with the same material the one word, deposed. I have that curiosity beside me at this moment, but not a trace of writing now remains beyond a single scratch, such as a man might make with his thumbnail. That was the end of the night's business. Soon after, with a drink all round, we lay down to sleep. And outside of Silver's vengeance was to put George Merry up for sentinel and threaten him with death if he should prove unfaithful. It was a long ere I could close an eye, and heaven knows I had matter enough for the thought in man whom I had slain that afternoon, in my own most perilous position, and above all in the remarkable game that I saw Silver now engaged upon, keeping the mutineers together with one hand and grasping with the other after every means possible and impossible to make his peace and save his miserable life. He himself slept peacefully and snored aloud, yet my heart was sore for him, wicked as he was, to think on the dark perils that environed and shameful giblet that awaited him. Chapter 30, On Parole. I was awakened indeed. We were all awakened, for I could see even the sentinel shake himself together from where we had fallen against the doorpost by a clear, hearty voice hailing us from the margin of the wood. "Blockhouse, ahoy!" it cried. "Here's the doctor." And the doctor it was. Although I was glad to hear the sound, yet my gladness was not without admixture. I remembered the confusion, my insubordinate and stealthy conduct, and when I saw where it had brought me, among what companions, and surrounded by what dangers, I felt ashamed to look him in the face. He must have risen in the dark, for the day had hardly come, and when I ran to the loophole and looked out, I saw him standing, like Silver once before, up to the mid-lake in creeping vapor. "You, doctor, top of the morning to you, sir," cried Silver, broad awake and beaming with good nature in a moment. "Bright and early, to be sure, and it's the early bird, as the saying goes, that gets the rations. George, shake up your timbers, son, and help Dr. Livesey over the ship's side. All a-doing well, your patience was? All well and merry." So the patterned on, standing on the hilltop with his crutch under his elbow and one hand upon the side of the log house, quite the old John in voice, manner, and expression. "We've quite a surprise for you too, sir," he continued. "We've a little stranger here, he, a new boarder and lodger, sir, and looking fit and taut as a fiddle, sleeping like a supercargo, he did, right alongside of John, stem to stem it was, all night. Dr. Livesey was by this time across the stockade and pretty near the cook, and I could hear the alteration in his voice as he said, 'Not Jim?' 'The very same Jim as ever was,' says Silver. The doctor stopped outright, although he did not speak, and it was some seconds before he seemed able to move on. 'Well, well,' he said at last, 'duty first and pleasure afterwards, as you might have said yourself, Silver. Let us overhaul these patients of yours.' A moment afterward he had entered the blockhouse, and with one grim nod to me, proceeded with his work among the sick. He seemed under no apprehension, though he must have known that his life among these treacherous demons depended on a hair, and he rattled on to his patients as if he were paying an ordinary professional visit in a quiet English family. His manner, I suppose, reacted on the men, for they behaved to him as if nothing had occurred, as if he were still ship's doctor and they still faithful hands before the mast. "You're doing well, my friend," he said to the fellow with the bandaged head. "And if ever any person had a close shave, it was you. Your head must be on as hard as iron. Well, George, how goes it? You are a pretty color, certainly. Why, your liver, man, is upside down. Did you take that medicine? Did he take that medicine, men?" "Aye, aye, sir. He took it, sure enough," returned Morgan. "Because you see, since I am mutineer's doctor, or prison doctor, as I prefer to call it," says Dr. Livesey in this pleasantest way, "I make it a point of honor not to lose a man for King George, God bless him, and the gallows." The rogues looked at each other, but swallowed the home thrust in silence. "Dick don't feel well, sir," said one. "Don't he?" replied the doctor. "Well, step up here, Dick, and let me see your tongue." "No, I should be surprised if he did. The man's tongue is fit to frighten the French. Another fever." "Ah, there," said Morgan. "That comed of spillin' Bibles. That comes, as you call it, of being errant asses," retorted the doctor, "and not having sense enough to know honest air from poison, and dry land from vile, pestiferous slow. I think it most probable, though of course it's not my opinion, that you'll all have the deuce to pay before you get that malaria out of your systems. Camp in a bog, would you, Silver? I'm surprised at you. You're less than a fool than many. Take you all around. But you don't appear to have the rudiments of notion of the rules of health. Well," he added, after he had dosed them around and they had taken their prescriptions, with really laughable humility, "more like charity school children than blood-guilty mutineers and pirates. Well, that's done for the day, and now I should wish to have a talk with that boy, please." And he nodded his head in my direction carelessly. George Mary was at the door, spitting and sputtering over some bad-tasted medicine, but at first word of the doctor's proposal, he swung round with a deep flush and cried, "No!" and swore. Silver stuck the barrel with his open hand. "Silence!" he roared, and looked about him positively like a lion. "Doctor," he went on in his usual tones, "I was thinking of that. Knowing as how you had a fancy for the boy, we're all humbly grateful for your kindness, and as you see, puts faith in you and takes the drugs down like that much grog. And I take it I found a way as'll suit y'all. Hawkins, will you give me your word of honor as a young gentleman, for a young gentleman you are, although poor born, would your word of honor not to slip your cable?" I readily gave the pledge. "Then, doctor," said Silver, "you just step outside of that stockade, and once you're there, I'll bring the boy down on the inside, and I reckon you can yarn through the spars. Good day to you, sir, and all our duties to the square and Captain Smollett." The explosion of disapproval, which nothing but Silver's black looks had restrained, broke out immediately. The doctor had left the house. Silver was roundly accused of playing double, of trying to make a separate peace for himself, of sacrificing the interests of his accomplices and victims, and in one word, of the identical exact thing that he was doing. It seemed to me so obvious in this case that I could not imagine how he was going to turn their anger. But he was twice the man the rest were, and his night's victory had given him a huge preponderance on their minds. He called them all fools and dolts, you can imagine. said it was necessary I should talk to the doctor, fluttered the charge in their faces, asked them if they could afford to break the treaty the very day they were bound a treasure hunting. No, by thunder, he cried. It's us must break the treaty when the time comes. And till then, I'll gammon that doctor if I have to ile his boots with brandy. And then he bade them get the fire lit, and stalked out upon his crutch, and his hand on my shoulder, leaving them in disarray and silenced by his volubility rather than convinced. Slow, lad, slow, he said. They might round us in a twinkle of an eye if we was seen to hurry. Very deliberately, then, we did advance across the sand to where the doctor awaited us in the other side of the stockade. And as soon as we were within easy speaking distance, Silver stopped. You'll make a note of this here also, doctor, says he, and the boy'll tell you how I saved his life, and we're disposed for it, and you may lay to that. Doctor, when a man's steering as near to the wind as me, playing chuck farthering with the last breath in his body like, you wouldn't think too much, may hap, to give him one good word. You'll please bear in mind, it's not my life, only now, it's the boy's into the bargain. And you'll speak to me fair, doctor, and give me a bit of hope to go on for the sake of mercy. Silver was a changed man once he was out there and had his back to his friends on the blockhouse. His cheeks seemed to have fallen in. His voice trembled. Never was a soul more dead in earnest. Why, John? You are not afraid? Asked Dr. Livesey. Doctor, I'm no coward. No, not I. Not so much. And he snapped his fingers together. If I was, I wouldn't say it, but I'll own up fairly. I've the shakes upon me for the gallows. You're a good man and true. I've never seen a better man, and you'll not forget what I've done good. Not any more than you'll forget the bad. I know. I stepped aside, see here, and leave you and Jim alone, and you'll put down for me too, for it's a long stretch is that. So saying, he stepped back a little way till he was out of earshot, and there sat down upon a tree stump and began to whistle, spinning round now and again upon his seat so as to command a slight sometimes of me and the doctor, and sometimes of his unruly ruffians, as they went to and fro in the sand between the fire, which they were busily rekindling, and the house, from which they brought forth pork and bread to make breakfast. So, Jim, said the doctor sadly, here you are, as you have brewed. So shall you drink, my boy. Heaven knows I cannot find it in my heart to blame you, but this much I will say, be it kind or unkind. When Captain Smollett was well, you dared not have gone off, and when he was ill, you couldn't help it. By George, it was downright cowardly. I will my own that I here began to weep. Doctor, I said, you might spare me. I have blamed myself enough. My life's forfeit anyway, and I should have been dead by now if Silver hadn't stood in for me. And doctor, believe this, I can die. I dare say I deserve it, but what I fear is torture, if they come to torture me. Jim, the doctor interrupted, and his voice was quite changed. Jim, I can't have this. Whip over and we'll run for it. Doctor, said I passed my word. I know, he cried. We can't help that now, Jim. I'll take it from on my shoulders. Holos bulos, blame and shame, my boy. But stay here. I cannot let you jump. One jump and you're out, and we'll run for it like the antelopes. No, I replied. You know right well you wouldn't do the same thing yourself. Neither you nor squire nor captain nor more will to it. Silver trusted me. I passed my word, and back I go. But, doctor, you did not let me finish. If they come to torture me, I might slip word of where the ship is, for I got the ship, part by luck and part by risking, and she lies north in the North Inlet, on the southern beach and just below the water. At half tide she must be high and dry. The ship! Exclaimed the doctor, rapidly described to him my adventures, and he said to me, out in silence. There's a kind of fate in this, he observed, when I was done. Every step, it's you that saves our lives. And do you suppose, by any chance, that we are going to let you lose yours? That would be a poor return, my boy. You found out the plot. You found Ben Gum. The best deeds that ever you did or will do, though you live to 90. Oh, by Jupiter! And talking of Ben Gum, why this mischief hadn't been in that person, Silver, he cried. Silver, I'll give you a piece of advice, he continued, as he took and drew nearer and nearer again. Don't you be in any great don't be in any great hurry after that treasure. Why, sir, I do my possible, which that ain't, said Silver. I can only, asking your pardon, save my life and the boys by seeking that treasure, and you may lay to that. Well, Silver, replied the doctor, if that is so, I'll go one step further. Look out for the squalls when you find it. Sir, said Silver, as between man and man, that's too much and too little. What you're after, why you left the blockhouse, and what you've given me, that there chart, I don't know. Now do I. And yet, I've done your bidding with my eyes and shut, and never a word of hope. But no, this here's too much. If you won't tell me what you mean plain out, just say it, and I'll leave the helm. No, said Doctor amusingly. I've no right to say it more. It's not my secret, you see, Silver, or I give you my word. I did tell it to you, but I'll go as far with you as I dare go, and step beyond, for I'll have my wig sorted by the captain, or I'm mistaken. And first, I'll go give you a bit of hope. Silver, if we both get out alive of this wolf trap, I'll do my best to save you, short of perjury. Silver's face was radiant. You couldn't say more. I'm sure, sir, not if you was my mother, he cried. Well, that's my first concession, added the doctor. My second is a piece of advice. Keep the boy close beside you, and when you need help, hello. I'm off to seek it for you, and that itself will show you if I speak at random. Goodbye, Jim. And Dr. Livesey shook hands with me through the stockade, nodded to Silver, and set off at a brisk pace in the woods. Chapter 31, The Treasure Hunt, Flint's Pointer. Jim, said Silver, when we were alone, if I saved your life, you saved mine, and I will not forget it. I seen the doctor waving you to run for it. With the tail of my eye, I did, and I seen you say no, as plain as hearing. Jim, that's one for you. This is the first glint of hope I had since the attack failed, and I owe it to you. And now, Jim, we're going in for this treasure, and treasure hunting, with sealed orders too, and I don't like it, and you and me must stick close, back to back like, and we save our necks in spite of fate and fortune. Just then a man hailed us from the fire that breakfast was ready, and we were soon seated here and there about the sand over a biscuit and fried junk. They had lit a fire fit to roast an ox, and it was now grown so hot that they could only approach it from windward, and even there not without precaution. In the same wasteful spirit they had cooked, I suppose, 3 times more than we could eat, and one of them, with an empty laugh, threw what was left into the fire, which blazed and roared again over this unusual fuel. I've never in my life saw men so careless of the marrow, hand to mouth, is the only word that I can describe their way of doing. And what with wasted food and sleeping sentries, though they were bold enough for a brush and be done with it, I could see their entire unfitness for anything like a prolonged campaign. Even Silver, eating away with Captain Flint upon his shoulder, had not a word of blame for their recklessness, and for the more surprised of me, for I thought he had never shown himself so cunning as he did then. "Aye, mates," said he, "it's lucky you have barbecue. To think for you with this here head. I got what I wanted, I did. Sure enough, they have come and they have the ship. Where they have it, I don't know yet. But once we hit the treasure, we'll have to jump about and find out. And then, mates, us that has the boats, I reckon, has the upper hand." Thus he kept running on, with his mouth full of hot bacon. Thus he restored their hope and confidence, and I more than suspect repaired his own at the same time. "As for hostage," he continued, "that's his last talk, I guess, with them he loves so dear. I've got my piece o' news, and thankee to him for that. But it's over and done. I'll take him in a line when we go treasure hunting, for we'll keep him like so much gold in a case of accidents. You mark. And in the meantime, once we got the ship and treasure both and off to sea like jolly companions, why then we'll talk Mr. Hawkins over. We will, and we'll give him his share, to be sure, for all his kindness." It was no wonder the men were in good humor now. For my part, I was horribly cast down. Should the scheme he had now sketched prove feasible, Silver, already doubly a traitor, would not hesitate to adopt it. He had still a foot in either camp, and there was no doubt he would prefer wealth and freedom with the pirates to a bare escape from hanging, which was the best he had hoped on our side. Nay, and even if things so fell out, he was forced to keep his faith with Dr. Livesey. Even then, what danger lay before us? What a moment that would be with the suspicions of his followers turned to certainty, and he and I should have to fight for dear life, he a cripple and I a boy, against 5 strong, active seamen. Add to this double jeopardy, that is, double apprehension, the mystery, and still hung over the behavior of my friends, their unexplained desertion of the stockade, their inexplicable cessation of the chart, or, harder still to understand, the doctor's last warning to Silver: "Look out for squalls when you find it," and you will readily believe how little taste I found in my breakfast, and with how uneasy a heart I set forth behind my captors on the quest for treasure. We made a curious figure. Had one been there to see us, all in soiled sailor clothes, and all but me armed to the teeth. Silver had 2 guns slung about him, one before and one behind, besides the great cutlass at his waist, and a pistol in each pocket of his square tailored coat. To complete his strange appearance, Captain Flint sat perched upon his shoulder, and grabbing odds and ends of purposeless sea talk, I had a line about my waist, and I followed obediently after the sea cook, who held the loose end of the rope, now in his free hand, now between his powerful teeth. For all the world, I was led like a dancing bear. The other men variously burthened, some carrying picks and shovels, for that had been the very first necessary they brought ashore from Hispaniola, others laden with pork, bread, and brandy from the midday meal. All the stores, I observed, came from our stock, and I could see the truth of Silver's words the night before. Had he not struck a bargain with the doctor, he and his mutineers, deserted by the ship, must have been driven to subsist on clear water and the proceeds of their hunting. Water would have been little to their taste. A sailor is not usually a good shot, and besides all that, when they were so short of eatables, it was not likely they would be very flush of powder. Well, thus equipped, we all set out, even the fellow with the broken head, who should certainly have kept in shadow and straggled, one after another, to the beach where the 2 gigs awaited us. Even those bore trace of the drunken folly of the pirates, one in a broken thwart, and both in their muddy, unbaled condition. Both were to be carried along with us for the sake of safety, and so, with our numbers divided between them, we set forth upon the bosom of the anchorage. As we pulled over, there was a sort of discussion on the chart. The red cross was, of course, far too large to be a guide, and the terms on the note on the back, as you will hear, admitted some ambiguity. They ran, the reader may remember, thus: tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of north-northeast, Skeleton Island east-southeast, and by east 10 feet. A tall tree was thus the principal mark. Now, right before us, the anchorage was bounded by a plateau from 200 or 300 feet high, adjoining on the north of the slope southern shoulder of Spyglass, and rising again towards the south into the rough, cliffy eminence called the Mizzenmast Hill. The top of the plateau was dotted thickly with pine trees of varying height. Every here and there one of a different species rose 40 or 50 feet clear above its neighbors, and which of these was the particular tall tree of the Captain Flint could only be decided on the spot, and by the readings of the compass. Yet, although there was the case, every man on board of the boats had picked a favorite of his own. We were halfway over, Long John alone shrugging his shoulders and bidding them wait till they were there. We pulled easily by Silver's directions, not to weary the hands prematurely, and after quite a long passage, landed at the mouth of the second river, that which runs down a woody cliff of the Spyglass. Thence, bending to our left, we began to ascend the slope towards the plateau. At the first outset, heavy, miry ground and matted marsh vegetation greatly delayed our progress. But by little and by, the hill began to steepen and become stony underfoot, and the wood to change its character and to grow in more open order. It was indeed a most pleasant portion of the island that we were now approaching. A heavy-scented broom and many flowered shrubs had almost taken the place of grass. The thickets of green nutmeg trees were dotted here and there with red columns and broad shadows of pines, and the first mingled their spice with the aroma of the others. The air besides was fresh and stirring, and this, under the sheer sunbeams, was a wonderful refreshment to our senses. The party spread itself abroad in a fan shape, shouting and leaping to and fro about the center, and a good way behind the rest. Silver and I followed, I tethered by my rope, he plowing with his deep pants among the sliding gravel. From time to time, indeed, I had to lend him a hand, or he must have missed his footing and fallen backward down the hill. We had thus proceeded for about a half a mile, and were approaching the brow of the plateau, when the man upon the farthest left began to cry aloud, as if in terror. Shout after shout came from him, and the others began to run in his direction. "He can't! Ah, found the treasure!" said old Morgan, hurrying past us from the right, "for that's clean atop." Indeed, as we found when we had reached the spot, it was something very different. At the foot of a pretty big pine, and involved a green creeper, which was evenly parted and lifted some of the smaller bones. A human skull lay, with a few shreds of clothing, on the ground. I believe a chill struck for the moment at every heart. "He was a seaman," said George Murray, who, bolder than the rest, had gone up close and was examining the rags of clothing. "Leastways, this is good sea cloth." "Aye, aye," said Silver. "Like enough. You wouldn't look to find a bishop here, I reckon. But what sort of way is that for bones to lie? 'Tain't in nature." Indeed, on a second glance, it seemed impossible to fancy that the body was in a natural position, but for some disarray, the work, perhaps, of the birds that had fed upon him, or the slow-growing creeper that had gradually enveloped his remains. The man lay perfectly straight, his feet pointing in one direction, his hands raised above his head, like a diver pointing directly in the opposite. "I've taken notion into my old numbskull," observed Silver. "Here's the compass. There's the tippin' point of Skeleton Island, sticking out like a tooth. Just take a bearing, will you, along the line of them bones." It was done. The body pointed straight in the direction of the island, and the compass read duly east-southeast and by east. "I thought so," cried the cook. "This here is the pointer. Right up there is our line for the pole star and the Jolly Dollars. But by thunder, if I don't make me cold inside to think of Flint. This is one of his jokes, and no mistake. Him and these 6 was alone here. He killed 'em, every man, and this one he hauled here and laid down by compass. Shiver my timbers, they're long bones, and the hair's been yellow. Aye, that would be Aldrice. You mind Aldrice, Tom Morgan?" "Aye, returned Morgan. "I mind him. He owed me money, he did, and he took my knife ashore with him." "Speaking of knives," said another, "why don't we find his lying round? Flint weren't the man to pick a seaman's pocket, and the birds, I guess would have left it, wouldn't they have left it be?" "By the powers, that's true," cried Silver. "They ain't a thing left here," said Mary, still feeling round among the bones. "Not a copper doit, nor a bouncy box. It don't look natural to me." "No, by gum, it don't," agreed Silver. "Not natural. Not nice, says you. Great guns, messmates. But if Flint was living, this would be a hot spot for you and me. 6 they were, and 6 are we, and bones is what they are now. I saw him dead with these here deadlights," said Morgan. "Billy took me in. There he laid, with a penny pieces on his eyes." "Dead, aye, sure enough, he's dead and gone below," said the fellow with the bandage. "But if ever spirited walked, it would be Flint's. Dear heart, but he died bad, did Flint." "Aye, that he did," observed another. "Now he raged, and now he hollered for the rum, and now he sang. 15 men were his only song, mates, and I tell you true, I never rightly liked to hear it since. It was main hot, and the windy was open, and I hear that old song coming out as clear, and death hall on a man's already." Come, said Silver, "stow this talk. He's dead, and he don't walk, and I know, leastways, he won't walk by day, and you may lay to that. Care killed the cat. Fetch ahead for the doubloons." We started certainly, but in spite of the hot sun and the staring daylight, the pirates no longer ran separate and shouting through the woods, but kept side by side and spoke with bated breath. The terror of the dead buccaneer had fallen on their spirits. And that, my friends, is all for this evening. We are almost finished with Treasure Island. I think we have maybe 3 chapters left, maybe 40, 45 minutes left of reading. So we will continue that tomorrow night. Until then, this has been Indiana Holmes. Love to you all, and good night.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.